Hello and welcome to this, my first and only blog of this week, the third week of September 2021. And today I'd like to discuss how best to get new players into BattleTech. And I'm going to split this video basically into two, almost run it as a bit of an equation, like x plus y equals y now is a good time to do this. And the first kind of x in this equation is very much about timing. So previously, we always had issues getting hold of the BattleTech product, or I certainly have done before, like the Kickstarters, and I kind of started like thinking about BattleTech again, back into it, and did I want to get back into it properly? And I always had reservations because it just looked like a very, very difficult game to engage with because the IP was split in many different places. I didn't particularly like the models. So you could say that timing 4 or 5 years ago would have been bad. Like, it would have been bad to try and introduce people to this game for the reasons that I'll go on to discuss. The second part of this equation, so if you want to call that y, is basically the little tricks that you can use to get new players in, little manipulative tricks as well, and how to give them like an intro into quite a complex game that's got a lot of lore and history, but how to just like edge them into it, so hopefully they will then like the game and play it and want to get involved with it, and that will give you another person to play the game with. So that equation, x plus y equals y now, is, or how to get people into BattleTech, and why now is a good time to do it. So let's talk about timing in the first instance. So you can see here I'm on the Kickstarter website. If you were waiting for the Kickstarter, no doubt you have seen this. So I was certainly checking it like every week to see if they'd updated any news. And the very latest news story that they have put out is actually like my proof of why timing is really, really quite like good at the moment to get new players into it. And just to kind of develop that before I talk about it specifically, I remember when I first started thinking about BattleTech again, when I kind of got access to the Harebrained Schemes game, which is a few years ago now, and I think like the Kickstarter was just kicking off, but I didn't really know about it. And I remember looking at like the Ralpartha website, which is the UK company that you can buy battle mechs from, and they keep things very well stocked, and it's relatively cheap, so they've done a very good job. So everything, I want to be specific here, everything I say here is not some kind of dismiss of Ralpartha. I think Ralpartha are completely innocent in what has happened to BattleTech and when it nearly died, because they're just there to produce the models, right? They're not like the custodians of the IP, they're there just to provide a service, and the service, as far as I can see anyway, and I've bought quite a lot of things from them over the last year, is very, very good. So big plus there in the column to Ralpartha. They've done a great job. I've still made a conscious decision to use them, so I will be buying all my like combined arms stuff, so like tanks and infantry and planes. I want all that from Ralpartha because I want to continue giving them money as well. Though I might supplement some of that if Catalyst do decide to do a like a tank box set or something like that. We'll see what happens in the future. But suffice to say that when I started to look at getting back into BattleTech, I thought to myself, this is going to be very, very difficult, because they had released like box sets, or I believe they'd released like Alpha Strike box sets. This is way before the Kickstarter, of like new models, but they were still like monoposy models and they didn't look very good. Now, there are some really good metal models, and I own a few of them, and I like them, and I like to have like a smattering of them within the new models because it gives your like army a lot more flavour and a lot more colour. But on the whole, they're quite difficult to paint because they don't have the detail level that the new models have. So if you're introducing someone to the game who's not a great painter or doesn't really like to do the hobby side of it, and then they're having to paint like big sheet panels of metal where you have to do your detail yourself, and even like dry brushing kind of doesn't work. It does, but it's not as good as if there's detail on there and you can just get the brush across the top of the model. Also, you can't really use washes that effectively because there aren't recesses or big deep recesses in the metal, so your wash always looks a little bit like disappointing. In the new models, that's absolutely not the case. And the new models, they've specifically designed to kind of soak up the wash. And that means that it's easy to paint. I mean, I have, yesterday, I just finished all the Kickstarter models that I got, which is slightly embarrassing. But I am a quick painter, I will say that. I'm a very average quick painter, and I make them tabletop ready. But I think I've been surprised how quickly I've been able to get through those, because there were dozens and dozens of them, and it's just super easy to paint. They're a joy to paint as well. I love painting them. So yeah, again, it's that the whole new model line with how they've marketed it and how they look and the dynamic poses is wonderful. But the question has always been, can you get access to them? And up until now, I would have to say no. That's been super difficult, because in a sense, they've obviously done the Kickstarter, and that was kind of a toe in the water to see what the kind of demand has been on BattleTech. I think they've gone on to prove that demand is really quite high. They document this in the article I'm about to show you. But I would also say that, they've, not that they've failed on it, but it's been very difficult for me to go to some of my game playing friends and say, do you want to get into BattleTech? And they say, I'll give it a go. Is there anything I can buy? And I'd have to say, well, not really, not yet, because it's out of stock. You can't do it. Timing, therefore, is not going to work on that. So I've kind of had to readjust how I introduce people to this game. Obviously, COVID's been a thing as well, so I can't have people over to the house to play it. So in a sense, that's been good, because I've had the time to prep it and build all the terrain and get all the models painted and stuff like that. But not everyone's in the privileged position I'm in, where I can afford and got the space to do that. Some people are not going to have that opportunity, but you still might really like BattleTech and want to introduce people to it. And that's super difficult then, because if you talk about you can buy a lance for the inner sphere, but I'm sorry, it's not available anywhere, and there'll be a scalper on eBay that's selling it for 4 times as much as it's actually worth at retail, because they've got the last box set in the world that's available. So it's the timing, therefore, has been pretty poor over the last few years. Now, I'm not blaming Catalyst for that, because Catalyst had the Kickstarter that they produced for, and then demand seems to have escalated, and now they have reacted to that. And that's what this first part of the video is about in terms of timing. So let's just go down and have a look at this article. So the first bit of this article is basically just talking about how they have now got an unprecedented demand for BattleTech, and you can basically, I don't know, I can't remember the crux of the detail here, but it's basically you can add all the editions of BattleTech, starter sets that they've sold from 2002 to 2017, and they've now sold more within the short time they've been doing the Kickstarter than all that time period combined, over that 15-year period. So I think we can safely say that demand is high. They certainly feel that way as well, because if we scroll down into this article, which basically talks about how many prints they've got of the lance packs and the star packs and the restocks that they've been doing, things like that. But what we are interested in for the purposes of this are, where are we now? Here we are. Force pack reprints. Now, I'll just read this out. So the following are currently scheduled to finish printing by early September. So keep that in mind. They have all now been created. With most of it already finished. They were ordered back in April, so April 2021. Again, trying to take into account the current shipping issues, we are looking at either late November or December to have everything back in restock. Again, to be clear, the numbers directly below are completely beyond the needs of the Kickstarter. That's the key point here, to carry us well into 2022. So these are basically the numbers that they are giving here are retail figures. So they've done the Kickstarter, that's all done, all those prints have gone out. And what they've said here is, so if we just look at these figures here, this is the amount and then the total of prints that they've had created of each of the packs that you can buy. So let's just take one of these random. Let's just have a look at the Clan Heavy Battlestar pack. So you can see they've got 16,500 in total, and many of those have gone out obviously in the Wave 2 to the Kickstarter backers. But they've had, the key figure there is the 7,500. So that means that come November, December time this year, there will be 7,500 just Clan Heavy Battle Stars available on shelves, hopefully. So whether that's, obviously Catalyst Games will sell them. I'm sure that, I mean, this weekend has been Gen Con in the US, so I'm sure that they've brought a lot of their product there to sell. So they might go to, I don't know, actually they probably won't have these yet, but I think they will have had all the, like, the Game of Armored Combat prints, and maybe some like random force packs that they've had over the last couple of months. I don't think these will be included in that, because it sounds like they've just been created and they're just about to get on a ship. I can imagine they're disappointed about that. I bet they would have made an absolute killing if they'd have had even like 1,000 of each of these at Gen Con. They probably would have sold an absolute load of them. So it's a shame, but that's the nature of shipping at the moment. So anyway, what the key figures though in that paragraph above are basically when it says beyond the needs of the Kickstarter. So that's to say that we think there is demand for this. And secondly, it's to carry us well into 2022. Now, that's a really interesting way to put it. They've obviously done some analysis on demand for this product. And if we say well into 2022, I think we can probably say that that's going to be like this time next year. So like the fall of 2022, September 2022, something like that. That's a lot of product. I mean, that shows that how high demand is there. I mean, if you've got like on the higher levels here, like the Comstar command levels and the battle levels, they're having 10,000 of the Comstar command level 2. So if they expect to be sold out of that by this time next year, that's a lot of units to shift. And it's not just 10,000 units. Like they've obviously have reprints of Force 1. They've got loads of the like Game of Armored Combat to sell now. They'll have loads of the Clan Invasion to sell. And I think as well, just an instinct thing, I've got no figures on this, Catalyst will know much more than I do, but I think they might be being slightly, in a sense, business pessimistic by saying that it's going to carry us well into 2022. I think this will sell out quite quickly. I think that you're probably looking at, I'd guess like April, May time, that you'd start to see, like, you'd go into those like stores online and it'd just say like out of print. That's why, if we're talking about timing here and getting people back into BattleTech, or getting people into BattleTech who've never been into it before, now is the perfect time. Because my understanding is that over the coming few weeks, they're going to start being able to sell a Game of Armored Combat again, which is the starter set. They're obviously going to have loads of the Clan Invasion. In fact, I've seen Clan Invasion popping up on Amazon and on eBay now by retailers, so it's starting to kind of trickle through. Not these land sets and these star sets, unfortunately, because they're still presumably in the shipping container somewhere crossing the sea. But that's why now is actually a great time to do it, because you could, of your own volition, go and buy a Game of Armored Combat. The game is specifically set up so that you can play it out of the box, and then you can play a lance, and your friend can play a lance, and you can play on the hex map, get to grips with the rules, and you're done. And that will cost you about $50 to do that, which is great. You get lots of added extra things in the Game of Armored Combat as well. Like, you get literally everything you need to play a game of BattleTech. Now, if you do then, let's say you run that over the next like couple of months with somebody, and you both decide like, actually, yeah, I really want to get into this, so let's go and buy things. Well, we're in September now, so if we kind of assume that these are going to start getting on shelves, or these reprints are going to start getting on shelves in and around like the run up to Christmas, you only have a matter of weeks to wait before you can absolutely go and fill your boots and go and buy anything you want for this. And it's all the classic mechs, right? So if you're really into the Inner Sphere stuff, you've basically got all like the big daddy Inner Sphere mechs. Like, you can get hold of the Atlas, you can get hold of like, all the classic mechs like the Marauder, the catapults obviously in the core game, the Game of Armored Combat. But you've just got a lot of options there. And another great thing about BattleTech, it's not that expensive. I think they're looking at, I can only go by the Wave 1 stuff, and I don't think it's going to be much more expensive than that, but it's usually between like $20 and $30 that they retail at for a pack. And that to me is very good value because of the quality of the models. and the packaging. You get like the alpha strike cards with them and things like that. So I think that's really reasonable. In fact, I think they could probably get away with charging quite a bit more than that with a fan base. But kudos to them. They've kept it to a very reasonable price. And the one really big benefit of BattleTech is that you don't need like thousands of models, right? You can do that if you want to, but you can basically play for life with 20 models and just swap them around a little bit, especially if you've got like a community of people who play the game. Just give yourself some options. Remember as well, BattleTech is like basically you can play with anything you want. There's no kind of set rule to say that you've got to play with their specific mechs. You can play with the Relpatha mechs. You can play with models from other game systems. If you're playing on 3D terrain, obviously you need to make sure that the mech is about the same size, so that you've got some kind of judgment on whether something is like obscured or in range or whatever else. So, but effectively, if you're playing on the hex grid, you can play BattleTech with like bottle top caps. I mean, there's no there's no pressure to do anything. I mean, you can do that in any game system, obviously, but like I think at BattleTech it's almost encouraged to get like creative with that. It's why they give you the little standees, the little cardboard standees in the game. It's almost like a nobody's judging you kind of move, like just play with what you want. And the standees are a good like proxy because they are the same size as the mechs, and you can kind of judge, whether you can. It's just if you're playing on 3D terrain, you can see like directly whether or not one mech has got visibility of another. For me personally, I like to have everything perfect. So I like to have like all my mechs have got to be like lore appropriate, and they've all got to be painted in the correct colours, and because I'm weird. So that's more reflection on me. That's no reflection on BattleTech. So, I can like, I'm sure there'll be players like that as well. Like I cannot play a game with unpainted models. Just upsets me. So, but I don't. I'm careful how I do that, right? Like I don't like if I've got friends who play the game, like you must have painted models. That's a really stupid thing to do. That's like really going to turn people off playing the game. You shouldn't do stuff like that anyway. So what I'll tend to do instead is if I've got a friend who knows really struggles with the hobby, and it's something that I'm interested in anyway, I'll go and buy it and paint it and keep it in my collection, and then they can come around and play with those painted models, because it's my issue, right? It's not their issue. They might have like things to do and have a lot more time to dedicate to other things than the hobby than what I do. So I'm quite happy to kind of take the whatever you want to call it, the bullet on. It's not a bullet because I love doing it, but like I'll quite happily go and spend the money and take the time to paint it. So I suppose that does segue us then into the how to get people into this. If we can assume that the timing is right, like right now up into September, October, if you can get hold of a game of Armoured Combat over the coming weeks and maybe the Clan Invasion, then if you do know that you like it at that point and you want to push into it, come Christmas, you're going to have a heap of models available to you. And it's not it's not the old metal ones, so they're much more like accommodating for people who are just like tabletop painters, as opposed to like really, really good painters. So they're much more forgiving of the new models. They also just feel and look a lot more like dynamic and interesting. So I think you'd look at those models and think, yeah, these look fantastic. As opposed to some of the older models where you're like, yeah, that doesn't look the best, but it's fine, I'll just play it for now. So yeah, let's assume timing is A-okay at the moment and you can go forward. How then do you get people into BattleTech? So there are going to be people from different stages of like their BattleTech tabletop experience with how they are at the moment. So for me, I'm very much somebody who used to play it when I was like a lot younger and then got back into it as I got into my mid-30s. So I kind of know a lot about the lore, and I've spoken about this before on previous videos, but I'm willing to kind of spend money and have the space to kind of run the hobby if I want to. So for me, my experience of getting people into the game is probably going to be different from a lot of people. So I'm going to kind of break this down into a few different sections. So the first is like, how do you kind of garner somebody's interest? So let's say you've got like let's say you all play 40k and computer games, and there's like a group of 10 of you or something, and you all see each other like casually, and you, I don't know, like socialise and everything else, and occasionally you'll get together and play tabletop, and you love BattleTech, and you're like, how do I get these other folks into this game system? And let's just assume they know nothing about it. I think a really good way to introduce people to it, if you're dealing with gamers, and gamers usually have quite a wide net, so it'll be people that play computer games, it'll be people that play tabletop, they might play card games, things like that. I think a really good way to introduce people to it in the first instance is just to tell people about the two computer games that are like present and active at the moment, and that's the Harebrained Schemes BattleTech game from 2018, and this is a bit contentious, but the new MechWarrior 5 game, which I'm not actually a big fan of, but that's because I'm not really a shooty computer game person. I only really play strategy games, so MechWarrior's never really appealed to me. I own it because it's BattleTech, and I've played it a little bit, but I really don't like the kind of tone of that game. It doesn't feel like BattleTech to me. I think it's been designed by people who are slightly outside what BattleTech is. And when I'm playing it, it just has a weird look and a feel. Now, it does have some advantages that you get from BattleTech in terms of playing the shooting games, because it's very satisfying, obviously, if you're kind of able to kind of hit a headshot from afar, or you're able to, you know, like do a jump and like arm destruction of an opponent mech. So it's not a bad game by any stretch. It's a completely serviceable game, but I think as far as tone goes, I think it kind of gets BattleTech wrong. So that kind of is a big check in the negative column. If you're trying to get people into it. However, you know your friends or family best, right? So if you've got friends who only play like first person shooters, they're not going to play the Harebrained Scheme game because it's a turn-based strategy game. Likewise, if you've got friends who play games like Civilization, or, you know, like, I don't know, Total War games or something like that, maybe you kind of can think, okay, I think they'd really like the Harebrained Scheme game. They should be relatively affordable at the moment. I think that MechWarrior 5, I think, is about to come on console. I think I read something about that recently. The Harebrained Scheme game, I think, is probably just PC, I would imagine. But I think the Harebrained Scheme game, it's now old enough that it's not going to be like wildly expensive. I mean, I bought it in a discount bundle package, which is like the best value game I've ever bought, because I have sunk some hours into that game and I love it, and I got it like for like half price for everything, like with all the DLC. So you might, you know, wait until the Christmas, like they do like special offer things, don't they, at certain times of year, and you know, the Harebrained Scheme game might be in that. They might be able to get it super cheap. And I think those games are both, even though, again, I've got issues with MechWarrior 5, I don't think it's very good, but both of them give you an introduction to the BattleTech universe as pertains to, like, the map, the universe that you're in, the factions, but most importantly, the mechs. Especially the Harebrained Scheme game. It's like a who's who of the, like, 30-25 list of mechs, and it's just really well done. So, and you can, like, obviously the way that you have to kind of manipulate those systems and, like, you know, refit your mechs and get them how you like them and stuff like that, it does kind of get you into that tabletop mindset. So if they like that, if they're like, yeah, I really like that universe and that setting and the premise of big like mechs going around shooting at one another really appeals to me. I think you can get a really good feel on the computer game side of it. So that would be like my first bit of advice, really. In gaming circles where you know that people are into computer games, that's certainly one way to really get them into it. The second thing that I'd kind of look to do, once if they do like that, is introduce them to two of the books, the very, very early book series is from the late 80s, early 90s. That's two. That's the Grave Death Legion books and the Warrior Trilogy. They are, to me, like, they're certainly the best books that I've read in the kind of BattleTech pantheon. They kind of deal with all that, like, early, like, 30-25 going up to, you know, like the Fourth Succession War lore as well. Things like the, you know, like how technology started to improve and it's like it's BattleTech 101, right? Like they're very good introductions to the universe, and they're both really well written series. That's a total of 6 books. And if you know somebody who reads, like if you know someone who reads like the Black Library books, I think these books are considerably better than those. So, and there are some good Black Library writers. They've got a stable of writers, and some of them are better than others. Obviously, exactly the same in BattleTech. BattleTech is very pulpy, so you're not dealing with like really like high end philosophical books or anything like that. So they're easy to read. But I do think those 2 trilogies are a really good intro. So if you played a bit of the computer game, and that will answer a lot of your questions, especially like the Harebrained Scheme game, you do come across like the Kerensky name in the Harebrained Scheme game, and you come across like some of the famous like mech warrior companies, like the Kellhounds and the Grey Death Legion. So they are in and around that game setting, so they do complement those books like very, very well. So if you say like they're your 2 like preempters to kind of see if somebody has got an interest in this, then obviously with your end goal of being, well, let me try to get them to sit down at tabletop and play a game with me, what's the best way to do that? And I think this is really kind of split into 3 different player types as far as you're concerned, right? Because you're going to have a different like resource level, if you want to put it that way, as to how you can introduce people to this game. So let's deal with the most basic first of all, and let's say you are somebody who kind of casually deals in tabletop, but you really like BattleTech, but you're not really, you don't really have the disposable income to drop $2,000 or £2,000 on like, oh, I'm just going to buy all the terrain and all the models and everything else. Well, if you have already got, or you are looking at getting like a game of Armoured Combat, it is super cheap. It's about $50. You get 8 mechs in there, so it's perfect. You have 2 lances, and it's very much like a game that I associate with around 30-25. So you get some very classic mechs in there, like you get the Catapult, the Battlemaster, the Awesome. Just split that out equally into 2 different lances, and if you've got people that you want to introduce to the game, you can just play one lance against another. The rule set is super easy in that game because it's basically like a condensed, simplified version of a like Total Warfare book, and that's really important. I would not go anywhere near Total Warfare book for quite a while. Like, just read those core rules, follow those core rules, and play like lance versus lance. When you kind of do the whole like, doing the armor pip damage and stuff like that, you will start to see very quickly how addictive BattleTech is, and hopefully your friends will feel that way as well, and will maybe think along the same lines of, I really like this and I want to get into it a bit more, and I want to see how much I can buy and how much I can kind of like get into this. So that's kind of your first level player, right? Because you could, for instance, if you were like low on disposable income, you can get a game of Armoured Combat, like I say, relatively cheaply, or it's certainly in what I'd consider like the affordability like level for a birthday present. It's like $50. So that would be your first option. Second option's a little bit more sophisticated and a little bit more pricey, and that's that if you had like a group of friends and you were all into gaming anyway, I think one of you buy a game of Armoured Combat, the other person buy Clan Invasion. You then get more map packs. You get like it's basically expansion packs, so there are extended rules in there through the Clan Invasion. It gives you more like scenarios to play. There's a little bit more like fluff rules attached. You also might want to splash out and go buy a couple of the lance packs or the star packs. Give yourself some options. Maybe if you've got like 3 or 4 players who are interested in doing this, you could all just buy one thing. So that's going to come up to in and around like $200 or something like that, I'd guess. Certainly, like getting the Clan Invasion box and a game of Armoured Combat will cost you about $100, and then anything else you wanted to get on top of that if you wanted to buy extra mechs. The third one is where I kind of sit, which is, are you like a bit of a local champion for a specific IP? So you find this like all over the place. Like you'll find people who are really into something like Necromunda, right, which is the 40k game. And Necromunda's a really cool game, actually. and they will have like everything. They'll have like all the houses that you can fight with in Necromunda. They'll have loads of the terrain boards. They'll have all the expansions. They'll have the classic level. They'll have the new game. And they will basically act as a bit of a champion for it. So it's, oh, if you want to come over and really kind of experience what this is, come over to my house, we'll order pizza, we'll drink some beer, we'll play a game. And those people, I suppose, are the... Well, gateway has got negative connotations now, but I suppose they're a gateway to... Also, it's gatekeeper, isn't it? It's got the negative connotations. So... like you basically can act as a bit of like a nexus for a game in like a local area. So if you've got friends who maybe do something similar, so they might have the games that they love and you kind of dip in and out of that, but then you've got the games that you love and they like dip in and out of that. So between you all, you've kind of got lots of different things going on and lots of different models. That's obviously, if you can attach yourself to a little community like that, wonderful, because you'll benefit a lot from it, especially again if you don't have the disposable income or the space to go and like max out your hobby. Those people will usually make a definitive choice, like I do, of just to do this. So, and I specifically say this to people, if I've had people in the past say to me, I feel quite bad because you've bought like £600 worth of terrain just for this game, and then I come around and play it and I'm like, that's the point, like because I like doing that. So don't feel bad about it. You know, all you have to do is come to my house and eat food and play games, and that's my payment, right? Because I take a lot of joy in like introducing people to games and, you know, getting them to kind of see whether they like it. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But give them the option. If you are that way disposed and you've got, like I said, the money and the time and the space to do it, then the best thing to do really is just to go full hog. And there's no point in me even telling you how to do that, because I'm sure you've done it before if you're of that mind. So for me, for instance, and I've spoke about this in previous videos, I am basically setting my entire forces up. So I've got like all the inner sphere powers, a lot of the minor powers, 4 of the major clans. I've got absolutely tons of terrain. So I've got like battle mats that you can buy, which come from Russia. Fantastic quality. You put them out on a relatively big table and playing whatever kind of system you want. So, you know, I've got like different options. I've got like cityscape, I've got like grass, like pastoral land, I've got like badlands, I've got like lunar surface, and then I've got terrain that fits to each of those. Because I'm very, very particular about my terrain, so I don't like anything to look out of place. So, for instance, you know, if I've got like hills that match desert hills for the desert or the Badlands area, and then I've got like, I don't know, like petrol stations in 6mm, and you know, like there's a company where you can buy like little rubber roads, which are fantastic. So I bought like a ton of those, so you can just run like an old road through a desert with a couple of like houses along the way, like, you know, an old beat up petrol station and some like warehouses, and then there's like hillsides in there that have got like that desert feel to them. I also even went so far as to get like 2 different types of trees. So I've got like plush green trees, and then I've got like desert dead trees, because I'm just particular with my terrain. Eventually on this channel I'll probably start recording some of that, so you'll see what I've been able to do. But if you are in that kind of third category here, which is basically the go crazy fill your boots category, you probably will be able to attract a lot of people to BattleTech. I think obviously over COVID haven't been able to do that, but now things are starting to free up. I've got a couple of friends that I'm kind of already thinking about, you know, I'm just about ready to kind of invite them over to play a game with it, which I know they'll be really interested in because they know what BattleTech is. So I'm kind of past that first point with them of having to introduce them to it. But what I need to kind of discern is what variant of the game are they going to like. For instance, because I love classic BattleTech, that's my bag. And I much prefer the smaller skirmishy type games anyway. So I really like going like, you know, 1 lance on 1 lance, or at most like 2 lances on 2 lances, which you can, if you're organised, run quite easily in BattleTech. If, though, they're looking at this paper like, what on earth am I doing with all this? It's just driving me mad. Then I'll straight away say, okay, you don't like that, we can try Alpha Strike. And Alpha Strike is like the quick snap variant of BattleTech. You can basically just run a game in, I don't know, like an hour, something like that. You can run like lance on lance. Classic BattleTech takes considerably longer than that. That segues me to the final point which I'm going to make in terms of tabletop. And let's say you do classic BattleTech. How do you format that as a first game? Now, I think you'd probably be tempted to do two things, which I think might be a little bit of a mistake, and that's either to go one-on-one, which is quite boring. Like, I don't see any real value in doing the one-on-one, like one mech versus one mech, because it just becomes a game of dice. Lance on lance is too much, because you're going to have to give people 4 sheets to keep track of. They're going to have to come to grips with things like how heat works, how weapons work, especially if you're running like assault mechs where you've just got like lots of weapons to manage, and think about, oh my goodness, trying to get them to get in that mindset of you have to decide on all the attacks before you roll the dice. It's going to be confusing for them. So I think a really happy medium is 2-on-2. Now, if you've got a game of armoured combat, I run it like I will give them, or this is what I've decided on. If I can go beyond that now because I've got loads of mechs, but when I did have that, I was like, well, I will give them the Battlemaster. I'll say that again. I will give them the Wolverine and the Commando, and I will take the Shadowhawk and the Locust, because my force is significantly worse than theirs, so it gives them a slight advantage in terms of the weaponry. But what's important with those mechs is that they cover all the bases in terms of the rules. So you'll find every single weapon on there, whether it's like machine guns on the Locust, so they'll see how those work. They'll see how SRMs work, LRMs, M lasers, AC weaponry. The heat's quite easy to manage on those mechs. You'll see, one of those, or both, at least one, the Wolverine and the Shadowhawk are both jump capable, so you can see how the jumping mechanic works. You can introduce them to things like torso twists, how like evasion works when you've got like you put like a black or a red or a white dice next to a mech. You can do all that really easily through 2 mechs each. It also gives you an introduction to the tactics of the game, because you can start to think about like outflanking when you've got like a light mech and a medium mech. So you can run the medium mech as a bit of a tank, and then you can like skirt around the outside and get shots in with whether it's the Locust or the Commando. So it introduces a little bit of flavour to the game, but not too much that it's overwhelming. I'd also then teach them the tricks of organisation in BattleTech, which I'm not going to cover in this video. I'll probably do that separately when I go into like the tabletop experience and do some videos on that. Because I think there are some really like easy tricks to do in BattleTech to keep your like organisational discipline, which makes the games run a hell of a lot smoother and a hell of a lot quicker. And it just takes a little bit of like organisational prowess. Things like laminating your record sheets, that's super helpful. Also good for the environment, because you don't have to waste loads of paper. And how you kind of get into the habit of deciding which mech is firing at which mech, how you and when you roll the dice, because BattleTech is such a record keepy game. If you are not organised, you're going to get frustrated, your mind's going to wander, you'll start getting tired. But if you kind of remain focused on your turn, you can usually rattle through a turn really quickly. The only thing, and just have like, I always pin like, I'm going to pin Gator to the wall, right? So if I'm playing games, I'll just blue tack it to the wall adjacent to where we're playing, so that they can then see like, oh yeah, okay, so it's gunnery skill plus this, plus that, and then you can see what your like modifier is for firing, because that's the one thing that you actually have to work out, is a little bit of math in BattleTech. I probably wouldn't do physical combat. I'd introduce that as we went on, so just keep it to like moving and firing and jumping at like an early point in the game when you're introducing somebody to it. And just try to, like I said, try not to overwhelm them with lots of facts and figures and law. Just try to edge them into it like very, very gently. I mean, I'd probably, if I was going to run a first game, it would be 2-on-2. I would do it something like Steiner versus Lau or something like that. And I'd spend like a minute saying, well, you're House Steiner, and House Steiner is kind of associated with big assault, brutal mechs, and I'm House Liao, who are like associated with like, lighter mechs, and they have sneaky tactics and things like that, so that because they're not like a big industrial power, and just kind of edge them and give them the taste of what BattleTech is, as opposed to just like throwing everything at them and saying, oh yeah, okay, this is a UAC weapon and it can jam if you roll snake eyes, or here is an L pulse and that means that you get a -2 modifier because it's an accurate weapon. Like, remove all that and just go straight for the core game. And the best thing about getting a game of Armoured Combat is that it tells you how to do that in there, because it just basically splits all the chapters out. Follow that model. And if they like it, which if they play computer games, they probably will like classic BattleTech, because it very much has a computer game feel to it. I do, again, if they hate that, if they're like, I just don't want a record keep, you can migrate to Alpha Strike, which is like I said, a much quicker, easier variant of BattleTech, but usually kept for big games. I mean, if you did like 2-on-2 in Alpha Strike, you'd be finished in about, like I said, like 30, 45 minutes, which some people might like. For me, that would be completely unsatisfactory. You know, if you get 2-on-2 especially, you can afford to do a little bit of micromanagement on the mechs. And it just makes the game really fun, because obviously the heat management in classic BattleTech, which is the big resource to manage, because if you get that wrong, you can be in a world of trouble. So it just gets you to think about the mechanics of the game. So I think that's it, really. Hopefully that covered quite a bit of data there in terms of why now is the best time to introduce your friends to BattleTech. And I'll start that ball rolling now, because we are in an unprecedented time for BattleTech, really. It's just becoming a little bit of a marvel, I think. I'm very, very hopeful that this is going to spawn like some excellent, interesting like things in the BattleTech universe when it comes to, you know, like the future of this game, especially like over the next 5 years, because we are at a point now, I think, where people will start to look at the gaming system and the product that's available and the miniatures and things like that, and it will just automatically like jump up in terms of its consumer base, and that leads to very exciting things. I know there are going to be people out there that are not going to like some of the decisions that are made, but I think overall, if you keep an open mind to that and appreciate that by more people getting involved with this, you yourself will benefit in terms of more players, and the product will start getting better. I mean, look at what Catalyst are doing now. Like, going to these factories and saying, oh, can we have... I mean, this is like tens of thousands of mechs on this page here that they've just had reprinted. And that's because of the initial success. So success builds, you know, more choice for the consumer. We are nowhere near that point yet where the demand is like so high that the game will start to change, and like some big corporate guy or girl up in tops will say, well, we're going to start looking at this now because it's making a lot of money. We're still a long way from that, I'd imagine. So at the moment, let's enjoy this. Let's enjoy this animation of BattleTech, because it was on life support not so long ago. So we're in a very, very fun time for it. I hope that you're all as excited by it as I am, because I'm certainly looking at those figures on the screen and just like rubbing my hands, thinking I'm going to... I mean, if you watch my old video on project managing BattleTech, you'll know what I'm going to buy. But just the fact that I know that I can just get those, I just have to wait a couple more months and all these will start to trickle down to retail, and I'll be able to get exactly the force that I want. And that's a huge like tick box for me, because I really don't like having my hobby like strangled, because I've got my like definitive calendar for when I want to do different projects, and like obviously this not nothing to do with, it's not Catalyst's fault, but with all the shipping problems recently and all the things that have been delayed, I've been sat here like quite frustrated, like where is my product? It's no one's fault, it's just the way that the world is at the moment. But now it looks like we're going to get maybe like a 6 to 9 month respite where you can pretty much get what you want when you want. And that's awesome. Now, again, it's not going to continue like this. Like I would guess that, if I had to guess in their mindset now, they'll be planning to release the Wave 3 very shortly. So keep looking out for comms for that. And in Wave 3, what they'll probably be doing, I bet you anything, they've got like a pre-order in for more reprints. So they might have like another 5 to 7,500 of each of these again in time for next year. Fingers crossed that's the case and that these sell out, and then we only maybe have to wait a couple of months and then they all get back on the shelves again. Plus, then you'll have the Wave 3 stuff as well in whatever they're going to do for that. So super exciting times. Can't wait to see how this goes and what happens. So yeah, keep watching this space. I know that if you don't follow them already, you can follow Catalyst Games on YouTube. And I think like once a month they'll do like a little meeting between the staff there that they'll video and show. That is like a bit of a goldmine of data, and they've got loads of like good folks on there, like the people that deal with like the law part of it, and the people that deal with like the logistics side of all the miniatures, and they're very, very transparent. I mean, this article is super transparent, right? They've literally just said this is what's available, so give them support. Watch those if you're interested in BattleTech. You know, I think they usually go on for like an hour or two once a month. They'll record it, and you can watch it at your own leisure after they've recorded it. And it will just give you, if you are interested in getting more players into the game, it'll probably give you an idea of where they are in terms of like timings. So the next time they run that, they might discuss this and say something like, well, you know, we thought it would be November, but we think now we might get it a bit quicker. So we might be able to get everything at retail by the end of October. They might say something like that, in which case you'll be like, great. Or it could be a little bit delayed. You never know. Hopefully not for them. I really do hope that they have all this out for Christmas, because you know, I'm sure that will generate quite a bit of revenue for them in terms of gift buying for people. Anyway, I think I'll end it there. So I will thank you very much for watching, and I'll hopefully catch you again next time.